The steam drifted through the half-open doorway like breath from another world. Joanna stopped mid-step, the sketchbook in her hand slipping a little as the sound of water shut off. For a heartbeat she thought she was alone, until the hinge gave a soft creak and the door slid wider. The room smelled of cedar and soap. A figure stood by the tall window, towel in hand, hair damp, sunlight cutting through the mist around him. He turned, startled. She gasped, backing out so fast her shoulder hit the frame. Oh my God, sir, I'm so sorry. Her voice cracked. She closed the door, pressed her back to it, and tried to breathe. Her cheeks burned. Her heart wouldn't slow down. The image of him, so close, so real, wouldn't leave her mind. She clutched her sketchbook to her chest. Joanna Mensah, you have finally ended your career, she whispered. It had all started a week earlier, when the managing director at Dahan Lux Designs called her into his office. Joanna, the Han global family wants a complete redesign of their Jeju estate. You're leading it. Her pen nearly fell. Sir, the Hans? As in billionaire Han Jun-woo's family. He nodded. You'll stay at the mansion for 7 days or more. Don't joke around this time. They're particular. She grinned. Me? Joke? Never. Everyone in the office laughed, because Joanna was famous for her banter. She was half Nigerian, half Kenyan, born to talk her way through chaos, and Korea had taught her to balance charm with precision. Still, she couldn't hide her excitement. This job could change everything. Her reputation, her finances, her dream of opening her own studio someday. The estate took her breath away when she arrived. White marble walls, mirrored halls, a koi pond shaped like a teardrop. Workers moved like shadows, silent and efficient. Then she met him. Han Jun-woo, the heir himself. He stood by the grand staircase in a simple gray sweater, hair neat, eyes calm and unreadable. He wasn't the cold, proud heir she'd imagined. He bowed slightly. You must be Ms. Mensah. Thank you for coming. The accent, deep and careful, surprised her. So did his shyness. Please call me Joanna, she said, flashing her usual grin. If I say something wrong in Korean, promise not to fire me. Okay? He blinked, confused. Then a small smile broke through. It was faint but warm, like sunrise breaking fog. That smile became the highlight of her first evening. Over the next days, she filled the mansion with laughter the staff hadn't heard in years. She teased him about the echo in his living room. Even your house sounds rich, sir. He tried to reply but mostly watched, amused. Sometimes he'd stand in a doorway, quiet, listening as she talked to herself while measuring a hallway. She noticed small things. The way he avoided crowds, how gently he spoke to the gardeners, the heaviness behind his polite tone. Something about his loneliness pulled her in. On the 6th morning, the project nearly done, she decided to check one final color palette before breakfast. She thought he'd already gone to his company's headquarters. The corridor was quiet, the house half asleep. Then, the door, the steam, her mistake. Back in her guest room, she paced like a criminal waiting for a verdict. He's going to call my boss, she muttered. They'll say I disrespected him. I'll be packing my things before dinner. Her phone buzzed. Aisha, her best friend, calling from Nairobi. Babe, how's billionaire land? Joanna tried to sound normal. Long story. Let's just say I might have destroyed my career in 5 seconds. What did you do this time? I walked into the wrong room. Omo, Joanna, don't tell me you saw something you shouldn't. Please, can we not? I'm still sweating. I saw the best thing ever, bestie. That guy is fine inside and out. Aisha's laughter filled the line. Tell me more. Anyway, breathe. He probably respects honesty. Just apologize if you must. Joanna hung up, still blushing, half mortified, half amused. Somewhere beneath the panic was another feeling she refused to name. A flutter she hadn't felt in years. Down the hall, Jun-woo stood by his desk, staring at nothing. He replayed the moment too. The shock in her eyes, the quick apology, the way her voice trembled. Embarrassment flooded him, but underneath it something unexpected stirred. No one had ever looked at him like that before, not as an heir or a symbol of wealth, but as a man caught completely human. He exhaled, rubbed the back of his neck, and muttered, "Why didn't I lock the door?" The mansion fell silent again, heavy with unspoken thoughts. And somewhere between guilt and curiosity, two hearts began to circle each other, pretending they could forget what had just happened. Morning came with the sound of the ocean brushing against the cliffs below the Hahn estate. Joanna woke to the faint scent of roasted coffee and lilies that the housekeeper always placed in the hallway. She sat on her bed for a long minute, clutching her pillow, trying to decide whether to face the day or hide under the blanket until her flight back to Seoul. She had spent the whole night replaying yesterday's accident. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the shock in his face, the steam curling behind him, her own mouth forming words that never made sense. She had already typed an apology message 5 times and deleted it each time. Nothing sounded professional enough for something so awkward. At 7:30, Mrs. Park knocked softly. "Miss Joanna, breakfast is served downstairs." Joanna groaned. "I'll be there in 5, she said, forcing her voice to sound calm. She picked a plain white blouse and simple trousers, the safest outfit she owned, and told herself that today she would apologize properly, finish the last room, and keep her dignity intact. The dining room shimmered with early sunlight. Crystal glasses lined the table. The smell of freshly baked bread floated in the air. Han Junwoo sat at the far end, reading something on his tablet. When Joanna entered, he looked up for the briefest moment before standing politely. "Good morning, Ms. Mensah." His voice was steady but quiet. "Good morning, Mr. Han," she replied, trying not to trip over her own name. She took a seat opposite him. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Mrs. Park served their plates and disappeared. Forks clinked. Finally, Joanna cleared her throat. "About yesterday." He froze slightly, then set down his fork. "You don't need to explain. It was my fault for not locking the door." Her heart thumped. "Still, I shouldn't have walked in. I'm really, really sorry." He gave a small nod, eyes still on his coffee cup. Apology accepted. And just like that, the tension softened, not vanished, but changed, as if both of them finally exhaled the same breath they'd been holding since yesterday. Later, Joanna moved through the house with her sketchbook, checking final touches. Curtain patterns, light angles, the placement of an art piece she'd chosen for the living room. She tried to lose herself in work, but every time she heard footsteps in the hall, her stomach flipped. At one point, she turned a corner and almost collided with him again. "Oh, sorry again," she blurted, laughing nervously. He stepped back, holding a folder to his chest, lips curling in that quiet smile she had started to crave. "It's becoming a habit," he said. The simple teasing caught her off guard. "Let's hope the third time isn't in a fire escape or something." He chuckled, soft, real, the kind of laugh that showed he rarely allowed himself to relax. "Your designs," he said after a moment, glancing at her sketchbook. "They feel different, warmer than most people's." "That's because I like spaces that feel alive," she said. "Not just rich. People should feel laughter in a house, not only see price tags." He looked at her for a long second, as if memorizing that sentence. "My parents would call that unorthodox," he said. "Then maybe they need new eyes." Her boldness hung in the air between them, but instead of looking offended, he smiled again. "Maybe they do." They ended up walking through the East Wing together, discussing colors and textures. For every suggestion she made, he asked questions. For every quiet answer he gave, she found herself wanting to know more. He told her about the mansion's history, how his grandfather had built it after the war, how every stone in the garden was placed according to old family philosophy. She told him about Nairobi traffic, about her grandmother's small furniture shop in Lagos, about how she'd grown up surrounded by fabrics and stories. By afternoon, the walls that had separated them began to feel thinner. When she cracked another joke about his office being so big, it could host a wedding, he surprised her by replying, "Then who would you invite?" She laughed, brushing her curls behind her ear. "Anyone who doesn't mind my singing." "You sing." "Badly," she said, "but confidently." He smiled again, that half-shy, half-amused look that made her forget she was supposed to keep things professional. That evening, Joanna stood on the balcony outside her guest room. The sky burned gold over the sea. She could see him below in the garden, phone pressed to his ear, pacing slowly. His posture looked tired, burdened. Even from there, she sensed the weight of expectations he carried. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but the wind carried fragments of his voice. Firm, patient, then suddenly strained. A family argument, perhaps. When he hung up, he stayed still for a long time, staring toward the horizon. She found herself whispering, "You deserve peace, Jun-woo," though he couldn't hear her. Inside, she scribbled in her notebook, "A home should breathe. Even the richest heart needs air." Then she added a small sketch of a window opening toward sunlight. Downstairs, he looked up at the same balcony, seeing her silhouette framed by fading light. For the first time in years, the mansion didn't feel empty. He didn't know why that comforted him so much. She didn't know why her heart fluttered whenever she thought of his smile. Both told themselves it was just gratitude, just respect, just coincidence. But in the quiet of that evening, the silence between them felt almost like a promise waiting to be spoken. Rain began to fall on the seventh day, thin silver threads sliding down the tall windows of the Han estate. The house, always so quiet, seemed to echo with it. Joanna sat cross-legged on the floor of the east wing, surrounded by color samples and fabric swatches, her laptop open beside her. The sound of rain usually calmed her, but this morning it only made her restless. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind replayed small moments from the day before. His laugh, the way he'd said her name when he asked about her singing, the look that stayed in his eyes afterward as if he wanted to say more but never found the words. She told herself to focus on her work. She was almost done. Today she'd present the final layout to the heir and his mother before returning to Seoul. When Mrs. Han arrived, the temperature of the room seemed to drop. She was beautiful in a distant way. Tailored white suit, pearl earrings, a scent of roses and power. She looked around the redesigned living room with a slow, assessing eye. "This is unconventional," she said at last. Joanna smiled carefully. "It's a fusion of warm and minimalist styles, ma'am. The idea is to make the space feel welcoming, not only formal." Mrs. Han's gaze shifted toward her. "Welcoming?" she repeated, as if testing the word. "My son values discretion. I hope he didn't instruct you otherwise." "He trusted me with creative freedom," Joanna said gently. A faint smile that wasn't a smile touched Mrs. Han's lips. "You're very confident, Ms. Mensah. It's rare." Then she turned to her assistant. "Bring me tea." Joanna felt the message under those words. "You're not one of us." Later that day, Jun-woo entered the room, rain glistening on his coat. His mother greeted him with a composed nod, then announced she was leaving for a charity meeting. Once she was gone, the tension in the air seemed to sigh in relief. "She doesn't like my designs, does she?" Joanna asked softly. He shook his head. "She doesn't like surprises, but she'll get used to them." "She also doesn't like me," Joanna said with a little laugh, trying to hide how it stung. He looked at her properly then, his eyes calm but serious. "She doesn't know you." Something in his tone made her look away, heart racing again. "Well, I hope she never has to fire me personally," she said, trying to lighten the moment. His lips curved slightly. "She can't. It's my project." The rest of the afternoon passed in quiet concentration. He walked beside her as she explained color palettes and lighting. Sometimes they argued gently. He thought the hall needed less gold. She insisted it brought warmth. Each disagreement ended with him giving in, pretending it was for design harmony when they both knew it was because her energy was impossible to refuse. By evening, the rain had stopped. The sunset broke through, washing the house in gold. Joanna stood by the large window, admiring how the light hit the new curtains. "You changed this place," he said from behind her. She turned. "It was already beautiful. It just needed to breathe." "You talk about houses like they're people." "They are," she said. "They hold memories, emotions. If you listen, they tell you what they need." He watched her quietly. "And what do you need, Joanna?" The question caught her off guard. She met his eyes but found no mockery there, only curiosity, maybe even care. She hesitated, then smiled. Sleep. And pillow rice. He laughed softly, that sound she was starting to love. I don't know what that is. Then I'll cook it for you before I leave, she said without thinking. Promise. Promise. That night she worked late, fixing small details. At some point she stepped into the hallway to stretch her legs. The lights were dim, the house quiet except for the rhythmic ticking of an old clock. She heard faint voices near the study, one of them his cousin Lee Sang-woo's, the other unmistakably his. Mother's. She's not suitable, Mrs. Han said. Do you want the board to laugh at you? It's nothing serious, Sang-woo replied smoothly. But the staff gossip. She's everywhere he goes. Handle it. Discreetly. Joanna froze behind the corner, the chill in her spine stronger than the night air. She shouldn't have been there, shouldn't have heard any of it, but she couldn't move. When the footsteps faded, she leaned against the wall, heart pounding. So that's how they see me. She returned to her room, sat at her desk, and stared at the designs glowing on her laptop. All the joy she'd felt earlier drained away. But then she remembered the way he'd looked at her, the simple warmth of his laughter. She whispered to herself, no one gets to define who I am. Downstairs, Junwoo stood at the foot of the staircase, listening to the distant hum of the rain returning. Somewhere above, he could almost hear the soft shuffle of her footsteps. He didn't yet know about the words that had been spoken in that hallway. He only knew that every time she entered a room, it started to feel like home. And that thought alone frightened and comforted him in equal measure. Morning light filtered softly through the tall windows of Han Junwoo's mansion, painting the kitchen in shades of gold and cream. Joanna stood barefoot by the counter, her hair wrapped in a scarf, wearing one of her bright patterned blouses that brought color to every space she entered. The house was usually quiet in the mornings, almost too quiet for her liking. But today it hummed with the rhythm of her soft singing and the gentle crackle of oil on the stove. She had promised him she would one day cook something from home, a real African meal, and after the long week they'd both had, today felt right. It wasn't just about food. It was her way of saying thank you, and maybe, in a way she couldn't admit, a way to get closer to him. The scent of tomatoes and garlic rose first, then the deeper aroma of fried onions. She moved easily, stirring, tasting, adding a touch of pepper and salt the way her mother had taught her. Music played from her phone, soft Afrobeats, and she swayed gently to the rhythm, smiling at the memories that drifted in with every note. Unseen, Han Junwoo leaned against the doorway, watching her. He'd woken earlier than usual, drawn downstairs by the sound of laughter and music. He wasn't used to this kind of energy in his home. For years, silence had been his comfort. But Joanna, she carried sunlight with her. He didn't speak right away. He watched as she balanced a pan in one hand and wiped her forehead with the other. She looked so alive, so unguarded. For someone who'd always been surrounded by perfection, her carefree chaos fascinated him. When she finally noticed him standing there, she jumped slightly. Han Junwoo, she exclaimed, pressing a hand to her chest. You almost made me drop my plantains. He smiled. One of those rare, quiet smiles that softened his entire face. I didn't mean to scare you. The smell brought me here before I realized. Joanna laughed, turning back to the stove. Good. At least your nose works. Sit down. Mr. Heir. Breakfast is almost ready. He obeyed, sitting at the counter while she plated the food. What is it called? He asked, curiosity lighting his voice. Fried plantains with tomato stew, she said proudly. It's spicy, though. Don't say I didn't warn you. I was to make pillow, but you don't have the ingredients. He leaned forward as she set the plate in front of him. It looks beautiful, she grinned. You're just being polite. He shook his head. No, it looks like something made with care. Their eyes met for a long second. The air between them grew still, charged in a way neither could name. She looked away first, pretending to focus on wiping her hands. When he took his first bite, his eyes widened. It's amazing, he said, voice low. Of course, she teased. You think I came all the way from Africa to cook nonsense? He laughed softly, the sound warm and genuine. You're different, Joanna. She raised a brow. Different how? He hesitated, searching for the right words. Most people here, they speak to me like they're afraid to make mistakes. You speak like you're afraid to be quiet. Joanna chuckled. That's because silence is boring. Besides, someone has to keep you from turning into a statue. He shook his head, still smiling. You already have. Her laughter faded into a shy smile. She felt a flutter in her chest, one she didn't want to examine too closely. When they finished eating, Joanna began to clear the dishes. He stood up to help, and their hands brushed. It was a small, accidental touch, but it sent a quiet shiver through both of them. For a moment neither moved. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Then Joanna pulled her hand back, pretending to scold him. You shouldn't be doing dishes. Billionaire heirs don't wash plates. Han Junwoo smiled faintly. Maybe they should. Something unspoken passed between them again. Something fragile, yet strong enough to make her heart race. She didn't know what this was becoming, and she didn't want to rush to name it. But she knew the walls he'd built around himself were beginning to fall. One shared meal at a time. Outside, the city continued its steady rhythm, unaware that in the quiet of the mansion, a story was beginning to simmer. Slow, warm, and dangerously sweet. Joanna woke up smiling, the smell of fried plantains still fresh in her mind. She stretched like a cat and said to herself, Chef Joanna, you really finished work yesterday. Then she remembered Han Junwoo's quiet smile across the table and quickly buried her face in the pillow. No, girl, don't start again, she told herself. You're here for design, not romance. Downstairs, the mansion was already alive with quiet movement. Housekeepers glided through the halls. Fresh lilies had been placed in the vases overnight. Joanna carried her sketchpad and samples into the living room, ready to present the new layout for the main suite. She was halfway through explaining to one of the assistants when a cold voice cut through the air. Is this what passes for design now? Everyone froze. Mrs. Han stood in the doorway, wrapped in a cream coat, pearls shining at her throat. She was elegance and command in one person. Joanna's stomach dropped. She hadn't been told that the matriarch would visit that morning again. Good morning, ma'am, Joanna said quickly, smiling as she bowed slightly. You came just in time. We're testing how the color of the curtains catches the morning light. See? It's giving rich aunt who doesn't shout, just signs checks. The staff tried not to laugh, but Mrs. Han's eyes didn't soften. I preferred the white, she said. This warmth looks messy. Joanna kept her tone light. Ah, but ma'am, white is for hospitals. You don't want your son's house looking like he's waiting for an injection, do you? Han Junwoo appeared from the hallway then, his presence calming the tension. Mother, he said gently. Joanna's concept is growing on me. It makes the house feel lived in. Mrs. Han's gaze moved between the two of them. I see. The designer speaks freely, and now my son defends her ideas. Interesting. Joanna felt her cheeks heat. She bowed again, voice steady. I only speak freely because good ideas need fresh air, ma'am. Otherwise, they suffocate. For a moment, no one breathed. Then Mrs. Han gave a thin smile. We'll see how long this freshness lasts. With that, she turned and left, her heels clicking like a metronome of disapproval. The rest of the day felt heavy. The staff whispered as Joanna carried fabrics from one room to another. She could almost hear their thoughts. The foreign designer who talks too much. The boss's mother doesn't like her. By late afternoon, she escaped to the back garden, needing air. The garden had become her favorite place. A quiet space with a koi pond and a single cherry tree shedding pink petals onto the grass. She sat on a stone bench, sketching a new pattern. Her phone buzzed with a message from her friend back home. Bestie, how's Korean life treating you? Still designing or now dating the client? Joanna rolled her eyes and laughed aloud. You people will not kill me. Who's trying to kill you? She looked up. Han Junwoo stood there, holding 2 cups of tea. Eesh, she said, clutching her chest dramatically. You can't just appear like that, sir. My ancestors almost left my body. He chuckled softly, sitting beside her. I brought tea as peace offering. Mother's visit was intense. Joanna sighed. She still doesn't like my colors. She doesn't like anyone's colors, he said. That's comforting, she teased. I thought it was just me and my African brightness offending her gentle eyes. He smiled into his tea. You make this house alive, Joanna. She's not used to that. She looked at him carefully. And you? Are you used to people who argue with you about paint? He met her gaze. I'm starting to enjoy it. She laughed, shaking her head. You, sir, are in danger. Once you start enjoying, there's no going back. A breeze picked up, carrying the smell of wet earth. A single cherry petal landed in her hair. Without thinking, Junwoo reached out and brushed it away. His fingers lingered just a second too long. Joanna froze, heart thudding. The moment, stretched, soft, unsure, full of something neither dared name. Then thunder rumbled in the distance, breaking the spell. Looks like rain, she said quickly, gathering her papers. They dashed to the small glass gazebo by the pond just as droplets began to fall. Rain drummed gently on the roof. Joanna's laughter filled the space. See? Even the sky wanted drama. Junwoo watched her, the light from outside turning her skin golden. You make everything brighter, he said quietly. She turned to him, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. Don't say sweet things like that, or I might start charging you extra. I wouldn't mind, he replied, still looking at her. For a few heartbeats, the only sound was rain. Joanna felt the warmth rise to her cheeks. She wanted to speak, to make another joke, but her tongue betrayed her. Outside, the housekeeper who had followed to call them for dinner hesitated when she saw the scene. The heir and the designer under the glass roof, faces close, rain falling around them like a curtain. She quietly pulled out her phone and took a photo before retreating. By evening, the whispers had started again. Joanna sensed it the moment she stepped back into the house. Conversations stopped when she entered rooms. Smiles became tight. She tried to brush it off, humming to herself while she packed her tools. But deep down, unease settled in her chest. Something had changed. The next morning, as she passed the study, she heard raised voices. She paused, heart pounding. Mrs. Han's tone was sharp and cold. I warned you, Junwoo. She is not one of us. I will not have our name in scandal because of a foreign woman who paints your walls red. Joanna's fingers tightened on her sketchpad. Junwoo's voice was calm but firm. Mother, please. She's just doing her job. Is she? Mrs. Han snapped. Then why does she look at you as if she belongs here? End it before it ends you. Joanna stepped back from the door, pulse racing. She didn't hear the rest. The sketchpad slipped from her hand and fell silently onto the carpet. The next few hours after the argument felt endless. Joanna stayed in her room, pretending to rearrange sketches while her mind replayed Mrs. Han's words again and again. She's not one of us. They sounded like a sentence carved in ice. By evening, she had made up her mind. She couldn't stay and let her presence ruin the man who had been nothing but kind to her. She would finish the last touches on the project, hand over her notes, and leave quietly. You came here to design a house, not a heartbreak, she whispered to herself. She packed half her things before a soft knock came at the door. Joanna? It's me. She opened it to find Han Junwoo standing there. No suit jacket, just a plain black shirt and the look of someone who hadn't rested. You heard her, he said simply. Joanna sighed. I didn't mean to. Walls in this house gossip more than people. He managed a tired smile. She's worried about what the world will say, but I'm worried about what will happen if you leave. She shook her head quickly. Don't do that. Don't make me the reason you fight your mother. You've given me enough respect already. He stepped into the room, lowering his voice. This isn't about respect anymore. You've changed everything here, how I see, how I breathe. Do you know that before you came, I hadn't laughed properly in years? Joanna tried to look away, but he caught her gaze. Junwoo, you're just grateful for color in your house. It's not me you want. It's the feeling of being free. He laughed softly. You see? You still think you're only paint and fabric. Her chest tightened. Then what am I to you? He hesitated, then spoke as if the words had been waiting too long. You're the only person who speaks to me like I'm human. Not heir, not investment, just me. For a long moment they stood in silence. The city lights beyond the window shimmered like 1,000 listening eyes. Then Joanna whispered, "If I stay, they'll destroy your peace. And if you leave," he said, "you'll destroy mine." That night neither of them slept. Joanna sat by her luggage, staring at the folded clothes. In her heart, a battle raged, duty versus desire, fear versus faith. At dawn, she walked to the kitchen to make tea before leaving. She didn't expect to find him there, already waiting. He looked at her, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "Running away before breakfast? Before your mother catches me again," she said, forcing a smile. He took a step closer. "Don't go yet. Have tea with me. After that, if you still want to leave, I won't stop you." She hesitated, then nodded. They drank in silence. Outside, the first sunlight touched the garden where rain still glistened on the petals from the night before. When the cups were empty, he reached across the table and held her hand. It was a small gesture, but everything inside her stilled. "I meant what I said," he murmured. "You're not a mistake, Joanna." Her throat tightened. "You have no idea what you're saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." His voice was low, steady. "I can't keep pretending I don't feel this." Tears stung her eyes. "Then what happens now?" "Now," he said, "we stop hiding." She wanted to argue, but instead she let her forehead rest against his shoulder. For the first time since she arrived in Korea, she allowed herself to stop being brave and simply breathe. The day passed in a haze of emotion. He canceled his meetings and spent the afternoon helping her complete the final touches on the living room design. They worked quietly, side by side, laughter returning bit by bit. Every look, every brush of fingers carried the unspoken confession that neither of them could take back. When evening came, she stood by the tall window, looking out at the lights of Seoul. "It's strange," she said softly. "I came here to build your home, but somehow you built one in me." He joined her at the window. "Then let's not tear it down." For a while they simply stood there, the city's glow, reflecting on their faces. Nothing more needed to be said. The silence itself felt like an embrace. Later, as the moon rose, Joanna returned to her room to find a note slipped under the door. In Han Junwoo's neat handwriting it read, "If the world won't understand us, then let's start with understanding each other. Meet me in the garden tomorrow at dawn." She pressed the note to her chest, a small smile breaking through the storm inside her. The garden was quiet that morning. Too quiet. The sky was painted gold, and the dew sparkled on the roses Joanna had once rearranged herself. But her heart, it was racing faster than her thoughts. She clutched the note Han Junwoo had written and whispered, "Lord, I beg oo. If embarrassment is coming, let it be small-sized. I didn't wake up at 5 a.m. for premium disgrace." She looked up and there he was, Han Junwoo, in a simple white shirt, his hair still messy from sleep, holding 2 cups of coffee. He smiled the moment he saw her. "You came," he said softly. "Of course," she grinned. "If I didn't come, who would correct your fashion sense? You dress like a drama actor who lost his stylist." He laughed, shaking his head. "You always find a way to tease me." She sipped the coffee he offered and sighed. "Well, that's my love language, sarcasm and caffeine." But just as they shared that moment, footsteps echoed behind them. Mrs. Han appeared, wrapped in an expensive silk robe, her face calm but her eyes cold. The air went stiff. "So it's true," she said sharply. "My son, the heir to Han Corporation, meeting a staff member behind my back." Joanna swallowed but didn't bow. She folded her arms instead. "Good morning to you too, Ma. You look too elegant to be angry this early. You'll spoil your blood pressure." Mrs. Han frowned. "Excuse me? I said you need breakfast before fight, Ma. Empty stomach and argument don't mix." Han Junwoo quickly stepped forward. "Mother, please, let's not." "No," Mrs. Han snapped. "She needs to understand her place." Joanna tilted her head, lips twitching. "Ah, place? Which place? You mean the one your son decorated with my design?" "I think I'm quite familiar with the whole house, Ma." The housekeeper nearby almost choked on her own breath, trying not to laugh. "You're very bold," Mrs. Han hissed. "Not bold, Ma. Just raised in Lagos and Nairobi. When people shout there, we shout back, then drink tea after. No big deal." Han Junwoo's eyes softened, fighting a smile even though the situation was intense. "Joanna," he warned gently. She lifted her hand. "Don't worry, Junie. Let me handle this woman-to-woman talk." Mrs. Han scoffed. "Do you think being funny will make me accept you? I have spent years building our name. Our family does not mix with outsiders who don't understand our culture." Joanna stepped closer, calm but fierce. "With all due respect, Ma, your son doesn't need someone who understands just his culture. He needs someone who understands him. I didn't fall for his name. I fell for his heart." Mrs. Han's lips parted, but Joanna didn't stop. "You raised a good man, Ma. One who treats people with kindness. So instead of fighting me, maybe you should be proud your son chose someone who sees his heart, not his money." There was silence. Even the birds paused. For the first time, Mrs. Han's proud expression cracked a little. Han Junwoo finally spoke, his voice deep and steady. "Mother, I love her. I've loved her since the day she called me Mr. Shy Billionaire and refused to bow." Joanna laughed quietly. "You still remember that? How could I forget? You made me human again." He turned to his mother. "If you can't accept her today, I'll understand. But I won't let you disrespect her again." Mrs. Han looked between them, her son's steady eyes and Joanna's fearless ones. Slowly, she exhaled. "You're both stubborn," she muttered. "Just like your late father." Her tone softened slightly. "Fine, but don't expect me to like her overnight." Joanna grinned. "That's fine, Ma. I'm patient. I don't give up easily. One day, you'll even ask me to teach you how to make nyama choma." For the first time, Mrs. Han's lips twitched into the faintest smile. "We'll see." That afternoon, the tension in the mansion eased. Han Junwoo followed Joanna to the living room, where she was packing her tools. "So what now?" she asked, her tone lighter. "Now?" he said, walking closer until she felt his warmth beside her. "Now I ask you to stay, not as my designer, as the woman I want beside me." Her heart skipped. "And if I say no? Then I'll chase you to Africa," he teased. She laughed. "Ah, Korean man doing chase story? That one I must see." He chuckled, then grew serious. "Joanna, will you stay?" She looked up into his eyes. Honest, gentle, determined. "I'll stay, but on one condition." "Anything. You'll try my Nigerian-Kenyan fusion food without complaining." He smiled. "Even the spicy ones?" "Especially the spicy ones. That's how we test true love." They both burst into laughter. Weeks later, Mrs. Han invited Joanna to lunch, the first step of cautious acceptance. The staff whispered about it for days. When Joanna walked into the dining room, she carried a pot of jollof rice herself. "I thought we should mix both cultures today," Joanna said brightly. "You cooked?" Mrs. Han asked, surprised. "Yes, Ma. Don't worry, it won't burn your tongue. Maybe just humble it." Everyone laughed, even Mrs. Han. From that day, something shifted. Slowly, walls turned into doors. Months later, Han Junwoo held Joanna's hand on a sunny afternoon in that same garden, the same place where everything had begun. He slipped a simple silver ring onto her finger. "I don't care about titles or traditions," he said. "I just care about us." "Are you sure?" she teased. "Because marrying me means hearing banter for breakfast and arguments for dinner." "Then my life will never be boring," he said with a smile. They kissed under the soft petals falling from the cherry trees. Gentle, full of promise. The kind of love that didn't need permission. Months later, when Joanna's story went viral online, the African designer who stole a Korean billionaire's heart within a week, she only laughed. "They make it sound like theft," she told him. "Maybe it was," Junwoo teased. "You stole my peace, my routine, and my heart. Then I guess I'm the happiest thief alive," she replied with a grin. And somewhere, in the corner of the garden, Mrs. Han smiled quietly, watching her son and the woman who had brought color back into their lives.
Hello besties, in this sweet story we learned that love doesn't ask for permission, it simply grows across races, across fears, across everything that tries to stop it. When two souls understand each other, even the universe stands aside to watch. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly like, subscribe and share.